The icy wind howled through the back alleys of the city, rattling loose signs and sending scraps of newspaper flying like restless ghosts. In this forgotten corner of steel and concrete lived Gabriel, a man who had long since stopped counting the winters. His clothes were threadbare, his hands stained with charcoal. Yet even in the shadows, he clung to one thing, his art. Gabriel drew everything he saw: cracked windows, battered shoes, the lonely glint of rain on asphalt. Each sketch was a quiet prayer, a desperate attempt to hold on to the beauty he still saw in a world that had stopped seeing him. That night, as the streetlights flickered like dying stars, Gabriel dug through a trash bin behind a shuttered cafe. The cold bit at his fingers, but he pressed on, searching for scraps of food or half-frozen bread. Instead, his hand closed around something unexpected, a leather-bound sketchbook. He pulled it free and turned it over in the dim light. The cover was soft and warm, embossed with a single golden letter, E. His breath caught in his throat. He opened it carefully, the spine cracking like old ice. Inside, he found magic. Page after page of breathtaking drawings, portraits that seemed to breathe, landscapes alive with color even in black and white. A garden bursting with wildflowers, a child's laughter frozen in lines, a city skyline under a velvet night. Each stroke was alive, each curve a whisper of dreams and heartbreak. Gabriel's eyes burned with something he hadn't felt in years. He traced the lines with trembling fingers, as if he could absorb the hope and wonder they carried. Then he saw it. A small, crumpled poster plastered to a lamppost nearby. Missing, a sketchbook. Belonging to Evelyn, daughter of Alexander Monroe. Reward offered. The wind flapped the paper against the pole like a frantic heartbeat. Gabriel stared at the poster, then back at the sketchbook. His stomach clenched. The promise of money was a cruel temptation. Money meant food. Warmth. Shelter. A chance to escape the cold that had become his only companion. But as he looked back at the delicate, perfect sketches, he knew he couldn't keep it. Each page was a piece of someone's soul. To steal it would be to steal a life. He shut the sketchbook and held it close to his chest, feeling its weight. In that moment, it was both a burden and a blessing. The next morning, he woke on a flattened cardboard box under a bridge, the sketchbook still clutched to his chest. The sun rose behind glass towers, turning the city's skyline into a cathedral of light. Gabriel's breath fogged in the cold air, but he felt a strange warmth inside him, a purpose. He rose and began the long walk across the city, past silent churches and crowded bus stops, past people who looked away as he approached. His steps were slow, but his resolve was clear. At last, he reached the towering gates of the Monroe estate. Wrought iron curled like frozen vines, cold and imposing. He paused, heart hammering in his chest. He had nothing to offer but the truth. Taking a deep breath, he pressed the intercom. His voice was hoarse but steady. I have something that belongs to Evelyn. The gate buzzed open, the sound echoing like a promise. He stepped through, clutching the sketchbook, unaware that this single act would change everything. Gabriel's footsteps echoed across the marble path, each step a battle between fear and resolve. He gripped the sketchbook to his chest like a shield, the cold seeping into his bones. The mansion loomed before him, tall and perfect, windows like watching eyes. A guard in a dark uniform stepped forward, eyes narrowing at the sight of Gabriel's ragged coat and worn boots. "State your business," he barked. Gabriel swallowed hard. "I found something. It belongs to Evelyn Monroe." The guard's gaze lingered on the sketchbook. He motioned for Gabriel to wait and spoke into a small radio. Moments later, the massive front doors opened, and a woman in a crisp suit emerged. Her hair was a perfect wave of dark silk, her eyes sharp and measuring. "I'm Anna, Mr. Monroe's assistant," she said. "May I see it?" Gabriel hesitated, then offered the sketchbook with trembling hands. Anna flipped through the pages, her expression softening for just a moment. "You'd better come inside," she said. The warmth of the mansion hit Gabriel like a wave. The smell of fresh coffee and polished wood filled his senses, making him painfully aware of the dirt on his hands. He kept his eyes down as he followed Anna through the grand foyer, past marble statues and gilded mirrors that reflected a man who didn't belong. They stopped in a sunlit drawing room. A fire crackled in the hearth, but Gabriel shivered anyway. The assistant left him there, alone with his thoughts and the weight of what he was about to do. Minutes crawled by. Finally, the doors opened again. Evelyn entered, her hair a cascade of honey gold curls, her eyes wide and luminous. She looked like the sketches, alive, full of dreams. Her gaze fell on the sketchbook in Anna's hands. "You found it," she whispered, relief flooding her face. She crossed the room in 2 quick steps, taking it from Anna and clutching it to her chest. "Where did you find it?" she asked, her voice barely above a breath. Gabriel shifted, his eyes on the floor. "In the alley. Near the cafe. I couldn't let it be lost." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "This means everything to me," she said. She glanced at Anna, then back at Gabriel. "Thank you. Truly." At that moment, another figure entered the room. Alexander Monroe, tall and imposing, his tailored suit speaking of power and money. He looked at Gabriel like one might look at a puzzle piece that didn't fit. "You returned something precious to my daughter," he said, his voice smooth but cold. "What is your name?" "Gabriel," he replied quietly. Alexander's gaze swept over Gabriel's threadbare coat and hollow cheeks. "You could have kept it," he said. "Sold it. Why didn't you?" Gabriel took a deep breath. "Because it wasn't mine to keep. The art, it's part of her soul. It would have been a theft I couldn't live with." Evelyn's expression softened. She stepped closer, her curiosity piqued. "Are you an artist?" she asked. Gabriel hesitated. Then he reached into his satchel and pulled out his own battered sketch pad. "I used to be," he said. "I still try." She took the worn pad from his hands, flipping through the pages. The air felt charged, every second stretching out. She looked up at him with wonder. These are incredible. You see things others don't." Alexander leaned in to see the sketches. His eyes narrowed, assessing. For a long moment, the room was silent except for the soft crackle of the fire. Finally, Alexander spoke. "Your work deserves more than street corners. Stay here, Gabriel. Let me give you a place to create. Not charity, recognition." Gabriel's breath caught. He looked at Evelyn, her hopeful smile like dawn breaking. In that quiet room, with the warmth of the fire and the weight of possibility, he felt the world shift around him. For the first time in years, he saw a future, one where he was no longer invisible, no longer lost. Just an artist, seen and valued. He nodded, tears stinging his eyes. And as he did, he realized that the mansion's gilded walls were not just walls, they were a doorway. To hope. To belonging. To everything he thought he'd lost, the mansion's walls seemed to breathe around Gabriel. Every painting, every polished banister, was a testament to lives so far removed from his own. Yet for the first time, he didn't feel like an intruder. He felt like a man on the brink of something extraordinary. Alexander led him down a long corridor lined with portraits of ancestors who stared out with cold eyes. They reached a door of carved oak. Alexander paused, his hand on the handle. "This," he said, "will be yours if you choose to stay." The door swung open. Inside, light flooded the room through tall windows. Canvases leaned against the walls, blank and waiting. An easel stood by the window, bathed in gold from the setting sun. Brushes in every size rested in glass jars, their bristles soft and ready. The scent of oil paint and turpentine hung in the air, a perfume of possibility. Gabriel stepped inside, his breath catching. He ran a hand over the edge of the easel, feeling the weight of what was being offered. Here, he could create without fear of the cold or the dark. Here, he could reclaim the part of himself he had buried in alleys and under bridges. Evelyn entered behind them, her smile warm and hopeful. "You deserve this," she said softly. "You've given me back something I thought I'd lost forever. Now let me give something back to you." Tears welled in Gabriel's eyes. He swallowed them down, but his voice was thick. "I don't know how to thank you," he whispered. "Start by painting," Alexander said simply. "Let your art speak for you." That night, Gabriel barely slept. He sat by the window, watching the moonlight dance on the glass. His fingers itched for the feel of charcoal, the glide of pencil. Dawn crept in with soft light, turning the room into a sanctuary of possibility. He picked up a brush. At first, his hand trembled. The blank canvas loomed, a silent challenge. But as he pressed the bristles to the surface, the fear melted away. Lines flowed like breath, colors blooming like hope. He painted the city he had wandered through, the alleys and the cathedrals, the silent figures lost in the crowd. He painted the ache of hunger and the quiet triumph of survival. And then he painted Evelyn, her laughter, her light, the kindness in her eyes that had seen him when no one else would. The sketchbook she had lost had brought him here. Now he poured his soul into every stroke, telling the story he had carried for too long. Hours passed. When he finally stepped back, the canvas was alive, a testament to pain and beauty, loss and redemption. The sun was high, flooding the room with light. Alexander entered, silent as he studied the painting. He nodded once, a small, approving gesture. Evelyn's eyes shone as she looked at the canvas. "It's breathtaking," she said, her voice full of wonder. In that moment, Gabriel felt something he hadn't dared hope for. He felt seen. Valued. Whole. The mansion no longer seemed cold and distant. It was a haven. A promise that even a man who had walked the city's darkest alleys could find his place in the light. Outside, the city hummed with life. But in this room, Gabriel had found his voice again. And he knew that this was only the beginning.